Right now is such a critical time in the mortgage business to get back to basics. Creating new opportunities in this market is vital, and getting back to those tried and true things that we know we need to be doing is essential to being successful. Building a network of loyal referral partners, implementing the perfect loan process to ensure that you have a thrilled customer at the end of every loan, leveraging your past client database and nurturing it, because that is the heart of relationship management. These are all things that are critical to your long-term success and building income. What's also critical is having some structure and accountability and having the guidance of a coach. Private one-on-one coaching paired with highly skilled mortgage coaches is the essence of the Performance Experts Performance Accelerator one-on-one coaching program. It's a 12-month program that starts with a 90-minute immersion session, and then twice a month you will have 1-hour coaching calls with your coach. The complete referral partner success system is also a part of this program. And if you want to learn more, go ahead and apply online and set up a free exploratory call with one of our coaches. The link can be found in the description of this podcast, or you can simply go to www.mortgagecoachingnow.com and then click on Get a Coach. Once again, www.mortgagecoachingnow.com and click on Getting a Coach. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Today's episode is with Josh Burrus. Josh is a friend and client of mine who has been an originator in the mortgage business for almost 20 years now. He is the Executive Vice President of Intercoastal Mortgage. He is a graduate of Virginia Tech University, graduated summa cum laude, which means he's a smart guy. I think you'll feel and witness his intelligence today in our conversation. He is incredibly versatile in his abilities to talk about everything from being a great originator and what it takes right now in today's market to do so, all the way to product knowledge, as that is a major role that he plays for his company. This is a man who is a tremendous leader and speaks from his heart, and I am really honored to have Josh Burrus as my guest on today's show. What's up, Josh?
Hey, what's up, brother?
It's good to see you, man. Thank you for being with me today. I'm super excited to actually just get to know you even better and chat with you and teach together. You're such a gifted teacher, so it's going to be a lot of fun, man.
I'm excited and I'm honored to be here.
Right on. So pre-recording, we're talking about the fact that you just started a 21-day cleanse. So I figured, we would just get right to it, let's talk about how things are going with that. Just, to make sure that everybody that's listening is thinking, wow, then I thought this was going to be about mortgages and they're talking about
yeah.
Going
I think
on
everybody today, I think everybody today is going to catch me at they don't really tell you this in the cleanse, but you go through this period where you're just angry for the first 5 or 6 days. So you're kind of catching me on that last day of pure hatred of the world. And then I'm going to come down into happiness again.
Yeah. Well, that, you know what that is? That's because you're detoxing. So what's happening in those first few days is your body's just getting rid of all the toxins, all the shit it's been storing in your muscles and in your cells. And it's just shedding all that. And it's not fun. You're right. But man, once you hit the window, I mean, is this the first time what are you doing? The clean cleanse?
Yeah, I'm doing the clean cleanse for the 21-day version. I did the 7-day version before. And that's short enough to where, you can just get through about anything and get through it. And then this one is definitely a little more prolonged. And I'm getting to the other side of the caffeine headaches. The first 3 days, I didn't realize how much during the holidays I was drinking in terms of caffeine. And this will let you know. It lets you know real swiftly.
But wait a minute, bro. Okay, so let me just catch the listeners up because you and I are having this conversation. They're probably going, what the hell is going on here? So Alejandro Junger wrote a book called Clean. I read it, 15 years ago when I was interested in doing a cleanse. I did my first cleanse. It was really powerful experience for me. It was huge. It was wow. I feel so amazing by the time the 21 days are over. And I've done the cleanse. I don't know, I'm getting ready to do it. I start on January 27th. But I've done it probably 10 times, maybe more. And the The bottom line is first week's tough and then it gets really good. And it's a really good thing to reset your body once a year or however frequently you want to do it. So let's get back to you now, Joshy. So it's the first time you've done 21. I've done 7. I've done the 7. The 21's, I think, way better. I don't think it's actually as hard because once you get to where you're at right now, from here, it's going to be smooth sailing. You haven't done the 21 before, huh?
No, I haven't. I've done the 7-day before, and like 7-day, like once you're at the end of the, during the 7-day cleanse, they have you do a 24-hour fast. And at the end of that 24-hour fast, you're pretty much ready to strangle somebody. And and then you kind of come out of it. And those last couple of days seem like they're really good and your energy level spikes and you feel fantastic. And it really does, it reset it for me. But this one, I definitely wanted to try and push myself a little bit more and do the 21-day. Because when I had listened to you talk about it before. And I remember when we talked about it, you were like on like day 19 and we were all having a conference call. And you're like, yeah, it's actually a lot easier. And from a standpoint of the volatility of it, the 21-day seems just much more of a nice arc as opposed to like the psychotic Chuck Norris roundhouse to the face. So it's
7 days. The 7 days intense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's aggressive to say the least, but it gets the job done. So no, I've honestly enjoyed it. We got through the caffeine headaches and I think now it's going to be a little bit more smooth sailing from here on out.
You're going to be stoked as to how little sleep you need very soon, man. Like by around the 10th or 10th to the 14th day, right in there, it's all of a sudden, boom, like I need 6 hours and that's it. And I sleep really well. And I have a lot of mental acuity and there's a lot of good stuff coming your way. Good job. And congrats on doing that. I know the part that sucks the most is the antisocial part. It's not exactly like you can go out to dinner with your friends or anything, you're kind of sequestered.
Yeah, it's interesting to see your friends kind of support you and they're like, hey, did you give up yet? We missed you.
They're antagonists. They're fucking antagonists is what it is. So, that's actually why I put out that. Did you see the text in the WhatsApp thread that I was going to do? Yeah. And I got like 5 people that were all starting on the 27th of January together. It'll be kind of cool. We'll get our own little WhatsApp thread going and we'll be, communicating with each other and seeing how everybody's doing. So, well, I suppose we need to talk about mortgages at some point in time, but
sure.
You're talking about your discipline there is a good thing.
Well, Tim, I honestly think too, right? Like coming through a moment like this where things are crazy and people are kind of down from a market standpoint, I can tell you one of the most empowering things is to get a hold of your health. Because I feel like it drives everything from there, right? Like you can get such a boost of energy and it's like a superpower that you don't really realize until you're in the middle of it. So anytime that I've ever like really dove into getting my, health back on track in a meaningful way has always completely powered my business. And when you were talking about sleep, I thought it was funny because at the same time, I hadn't slept well for a long time. And I started to kind of dive way down into the weeds on it. And I noticed I was drinking caffeine too late. And I was reading my email before bed and doing like literally when you watch any sleep specialist talk about the best way to get great sleep, they talk about like if you can get good sleep, it's almost like a narcotic. And when you do, it's incredible. But everything that I was doing during my day was the absolute worst thing that you could do. Like wake up in the morning, look at your phone, like go to sleep looking at your phone. And we recently got, I don't know if you've heard of the chili pad before.
Yeah. Well, Ben Greenfield talked about that in Mexico.
That's right. Yeah. It's unbelievable. Basically, for anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's essentially a cover that goes over your bed where water pumps through it and it can basically cool your bed. And as you get deeper into your sleep, it will get cooler if you set it that way. And it helps you drop into heavier sleep. So you don't have to sleep as long, but you'll get a much better quality of sleep. And holy cow, has it been a game changer.
I mean, how does it, when I heard Ben talk about that, my immediate response is, yeah, but like, is it like, when you want to get intimate with your wife, are you like, on a waterbed, or is it comfortable? What's it
Buddy,
like, man?
listen, so it's not uncomfortable. And the last thing I worry about in a moment like that is the comfort of the bed. I don't know about you. You're getting a little older than I am, but that's not where I'm at. But what I will say
I'm all about
is
comfort, man.
listen, when you have three kids that are between 6, 8, and 10, you worry about the availability of time rather than your comfort surroundings. So
Okay.
to be getting into a completely different pool of wavelength. But the sleep piece of it has been great, because I can tell you this: when your spouse sleeps better, you have a much better batting average.
Yeah, well, I want to go. I bet you do. I bet you do. I hope everybody picked up on that. So I want to comment on something that you said from a business perspective that I think is super important, is that, wow, like that's really profound what you just articulated. It's like last year was a year, 2022 was a year where you had to look hard for victories, right? Like there were a lot more defeats. Let's be honest about it. Even if you're the most optimistic and positive person, that was a tough year. And, here we are in early 23, and hopefully, God willing, next year's a bit more normalized, hopefully at least. But when you need victories in your life to make life meaningful, to have energy, to have a reason and a purpose to like get up every day and fight the fight, you can turn to your physical health and well-being, because you can control that. And that's a really powerful point you're making there, bro.
Yeah, it's like, as a father of young children, you want to try to instill confidence. And I feel like the way to instill confidence is to give them things that they can struggle at, but be victorious at. And a way to do that is to control the environment. So trying to set up things where it's going to challenge your children, but it's no different when you're an adult, and it's no different when you're in a challenging situation. So you try to set yourself up to be able to have small victories, and those small victories can build and build and build, and that gives you the momentum. Like, you introduced us to Joe Dispenza, and Joe Dispenza talks about the impact of positive energy and the impact of positive momentum. And the way that you can do that, one of the few things that we can control as originators in this environment is our own health, right? You don't have to spend a lot of money, but if you decide to dial into it, you can affect that, and that will affect in a positive manner everything that you do from the day forward. So that is kind of what I've chosen to start the year out with, is like a real focus is I'm going to dive deep into the health side. I'm going to stay positive with my team. We're going to train deep. And it has already proven itself over and over again. Every time I do it, it makes me go like, okay, you still got it. Like, let's get ramped up. But I mean, you taught us a lot of that, so I'm sure you have a lot to comment on it as well.
Well, I mean, listen, anything that I'm teaching, I'm either learning a little bit by the School of Hard Knocks myself or learning from other teachers like Dr. Joe. But what I will say is that, yes, one of the most important things that any of us can do, well, actually, I'm going to go so far as to say I think it is the most important thing we can do, is to take very seriously the importance of governing our energy. I mean, and that, our energy is dictated by everything from thoughts to food to environment to, what types of situations we insert ourselves into. And I don't think a lot of people have been given the teaching of that consideration, to where a lot of people aren't slowing down enough to take a step back and go, okay, wait a minute, what can I control here that might be healthy for me, that might influence my experience in a more positive way, that, how can I govern my energy on a daily basis more effectively? So yeah, like, turning the focus to the things that are good is an option. It's a choice. And unfortunately for a lot of people, like it's a challenge, but it is a practice, right? So like you even mentioned the fact that like doing it, giving yourself those small victories is super important, which is what builds momentum. And every time you do something like this, like a cleanse, and you feel good, you start to dispel the thought of, man, that's hard and I can't do it. Okay. That's number one. And then number two is you reap the benefits of what the end of that has to offer, which are really powerful, man, because it's not just having better energy, better mental acuity. It's actually healthier. Like I'll tell you a quick story. Last year, I decided to do an experiment when I did the 21-day cleanse, and I decided to, I did blood work before the cleanse and got all my markers, and then had my doctor write me a prescription to do blood work like 60 days later after my cleanse. Dude, it was incredible, man. It was like my cholesterol was like 127. Okay. And my LDL was under 75. It's like that, the blood work of like a 15-year-old, you know? So it's like, you see that and you go, oh man, this is like really good for me to do, you know? And those are the little small victories and the momentum that it takes. So like, okay, let's transition. Let's play off of that. Right. So momentum, small victories, man, in the mortgage business, that's a really important thing right now. What are some things that you're doing on a tactical business level, you know, as an originator of loans? And we'll get into the other things that you do, because you're, you know, very astute in various aspects of the business, but you are an originator. What are the things that you're getting back to and you're, you know, sharing with your originators that they need to be getting back to build the small victories and create the momentum?
Yeah. So I think, you know, one of the most important things that we really leaned into was redefining a successful day and what that looked like, right? Because everybody in the origination business has just come off of two of the greatest years that the industry has ever seen. So they had a very high expectation of what a good day was previously, right? You know, a good day previously might be closing 10 loans in a day. And that's probably not what this is right now. So redefining what a great day is, and then being proud of it, and then sharing it with each other. One of the most challenging parts, I feel, has been for people to go through COVID and be separated. And in our business specifically, people were separated, but they were still super successful. So that gave them a different feeling. Now a lot of people are still working from home and still working in isolation. And now they're not successful, and now they're scared. And that can be really detrimental. So first thing first, we try to get people back together in as healthy way as possible. And that has created a lot of different synergies that you just can't replicate over the phone or you know, over Teams. So we get people together, and then from there, we try to redefine our day as to how many people did we contact? Did we manage our database appropriately? And one of the things that we're working on heavily is, let's get our database as tight as possible. And let's make sure not only are we getting our database as tight as possible, that when this thing turns, we have already prepped our clients in advance. And all it is just a recollection of, hey, remember when we had that conversation about locking your rate when I saw it come down? Because that's my job. I'm your debt service manager. That day is here. And now it's time to execute that. So be prepared for your paperwork. This is great news. So making sure our database is super tight. And then on top of that, you know, we can make our database as tight as possible, but the reality of how many people we would have closed in the last 6 months to a year, where they're in the sixes and the sevens, that number isn't nearly as big as it would be for a normal refinance run. So on top of that, how can we add to our database right now with quality leads that we can monitor or adopt a loan from somebody else who maybe we didn't even close a loan for? And to do that, we've been having these great conversations with our agent partners, our financial planners, and then honestly, we reach out and we work in tandem with our title companies to talk and look for people who have closed at these higher interest rates through maybe builder incentives or whatever, to build up this great database so that when the time comes that we can strike, and that we can strike effectively. The wins are making sure that we're checking those boxes and we're doing those activities. And it's a different feeling than before, but it's still successful.
Shit, bro. Like, I mean, drop the mic, man. Like, that's it. Like, we could end this podcast right now, but we're not, because we can drill down on all that stuff too. But
sure.
Yes. Like redefining what a successful day looks like, building momentum through the gaining of small victories, breaking it down to, you know, the redefinition of success is also almost a redefinition of the goal, because the goal now is relationships. And the understanding of the fact that relationships take time. So it becomes an issue of more of the goal is contacts, meaningful interactions, knowing that the rest will take care of itself. And, I mean, the database integrity piece, I mean, yeah, like right now is the golden opportunity to adopt loans from credit unions that did 5/1 ARMs at 5.5%, all through the fall and into the winter of 2022. Those are ripe for the picking on a refi. And pulling that data from your title companies right now and starting to put together a marketing campaign to those people and warm them up and get in touch with them, let them know you're going to manage your debt for them. Yes, man. And then when you have that day when you wake up and boom, rates have dropped by 0.5% in 2 days, and you just look at it and go, oh my gosh, I've got a group, because it's all segmented if you've done it right. And sitting right here are 4 more deals, and you're getting that experience once every couple of weeks. So the pulling of the data from the title companies, I'm so stoked to hear you say that, because that's something that I used to do religiously when I was an originator, which was a very long time ago now, but that stuff still works. And the builder loans that were done, et cetera. What's your reach out on that? So are you calling? Are you,
So it's different,
mailing?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's different for each of them. Right now, I think, if you can't find data, you're just not looking for it at this point with what's available, through the internet and through your title company partners. So the conversation really is, or the pathways are twofold. Your past client database, you've got all their contact information. And when we talk about adopting a loan, I don't want to assume that everybody knows what I mean in that, but there have inevitably been deals that originators have lost through this period of the last year and a half. And if you have, hopefully you ended that conversation the right way. And if you haven't, the idea is, hey, listen, I understand why you're making the decision you are. However, I still want to make a relationship out of this, and I want to adopt your loan. And what that means essentially is that I'm going to be responsible for monitoring your debt throughout the next 30 years. And if I find an opportunity for you to be able to save money or for you to use your mortgage to your advantage, I'm going to be in contact. So be looking out for my call. That setup at the end of you losing a rate conversation, or if you lose a deal, that conversation can potentially have such meaningful implications in the future. So if you ever lose a deal, make sure that's the conversation that you have. And then on top of that, we should be having conversations with our clients all along the pathway of rates and say, hey, listen, this is what's going on in rates. Congratulations, you got such a lower rate than this. But don't forget, the market can fluctuate. And when it does, I'm going to see it first. And that's my job. You need to be off doing your work and your family things that you need to do. It's my job to manage your debt service long-term for your life. So I'm going to be in contact, and know that when I call, it's going to be important and I'm not going to waste your time, so that you're setting these people up to know that when they see your number calling in, they have the potential to be saving some money. So setting that up. Now, the approach for cold leads, as I'd like to call them, where you're getting them from title companies.
Yeah, before you go there, I just want to also add, agree again with everything you're sharing. I want to also add that what I had happen a lot of times on the loan adoption script, which, was, for me, it was an apology. I'm really sorry that I've not done a better job of educating you and showing you the value that I bring to a relationship with someone. And the fact that you've chosen to work with somebody else says that I've actually failed you. So what I'd like to do for you going forward to make it up to you is manage your debt for you. And I'm not going to charge you anything for it. And, I'd go into that whole thing and I'd check in with them 2 weeks later. And here's what happened a bunch of times is before those, 2 weeks later, I called, I'm confirming they got locked in. I want to congratulate them, let them know that I'm really happy for them, and that, I'll be in touch when there are opportunities to decrease the cost of that debt for you going forward. Imagine the message you're sending. Okay. The person's like, Jesus, man, I'm like, this guy's like on it and he's not even getting paid by me at all. Like I chose somebody else and he's more on it than the other person that I chose in most cases. And what happens sometimes is either before that 2 week call or at the 2 week call, I'd get the deal back because the person would call me back and go, hey, you know what? The guy's not returning my calls, and this isn't going very smoothly. And can I still work with you? I mean, I really liked what you said the last time we talked. I mean, there's no reason not to say it, right, bro? I mean, at the end of the day, it's like it's a script that is a win no matter what. So now you go to your colder leads, which you're getting from, a title company or whatever source. How are you warming them up? How are you approaching them?
So it depends on the level of information that they have. It's pretty wild. Some of them even get to the point where they have emails now. So if you can boil down all the way to the email addresses, you can run a campaign that's quite a bit different than having to do the old school, cold call or mailing. But
time out a sec. You're getting the email addresses from title companies?
You can actually access information for that from a lot of different places.
Wow,
it takes a little bit more elbow grease, but you can get there. And not for everybody, but it depends on how well they've, hidden their information. But look, at the end of the day, the conversation is still the same. You just have to get to the place where you can do it. You talk about the idea of, I know who you closed with, and these people aren't necessarily incentivized to watch your mortgage debt long term. I'm going to do that for you at no cost whatsoever. I'm a local guy. I'm right around the corner. And we can do this and dedicate our service to you, because ultimately what we like to do are create relationships in the local community to maximize people's wealth through real estate. It's our job to make sure that we're curators of this mortgage market and of the values in our area. And that's what we're here for. Those conversations, once they realize that you're not some, guy out of India cold calling you, and that you're a local person and they can look you up online, it becomes a different conversation altogether. And when you're approaching it as to, you don't have to do anything, I'm just going to take care of things for you, that's a hard conversation for people to say no for. And to what your point was earlier, when you had called those clients back, a lot of the times the reason that people will come back to you is, once you have offered something for free and you're not one of the people that are trying to inundate them with marketing and text and calls, and they feel like you're trying to take something from them, but you're giving yourself to them, and they can see that you are a professional. I feel like there's this unwritten rule of reciprocity in most people, where they feel this urge to want you to win. And that's what our job as originators is in this market. We need to be educators, and we need to be out in our markets educating people on what's going on. Because I'll tell you, you think originators are scared, first-time home buyers are scared, move-up buyers are scared, real estate agents are scared. So if we can create a uniform set of educational teachings where people understand, and you can be the person that provides the answers to what their questions are in their head, that's what people need in a place of fear. They need somebody to be able to come to and trust, where you've done the research and you know that you're the most educated person that they can talk to that day. And they're as thirsty as they can be for that information.
When did you start in the business?
So I kind of grew up in the business, Tim. So my grandmother was the first female vice president of a company around here back in the day. And my father and my stepfather were in the business, but I actually started in 2006 full time. So I was an intern in secondary marketing, which in our world, isn't anything to do with marketing. It's just investor relations. I started there as an intern, and I remember I'm a 18-year-old kid, just completely full of himself, and I'm going I'm watching these people make hand over fist amounts of money through 03, 04, and I'm like, I am going to kill it when I get out. And I get out, and the market's like, wow, and it explodes in 08. But I was fortunate enough to work for the CEO of a company who has been an incredible mentor, and gotten to watch everything. So when I walked into the business, it was one of the worst times we had ever seen, but I didn't know any better. So being able to be in a moment like this and help educate people who haven't been through a challenging time. I mean, pretty much since then, it's been a pretty great run. There's been a couple of years to kind of live another, but this one has been different. And I feel like people just need security and they need comfort.
Well, you got in at a really cool time, actually, as I see it, in that you were in long enough to see what was possible, because it was at the end of a great run. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, but you weren't in long enough to develop I'm going to use a provocative word, entitlement. Like, I think that that's a little bit about what's happened here is that, the newer loan originator, somebody who's been in the business, say 10, 12 years, just doesn't really know like what it really is to be a great loan originator. And I don't mean to sound like, oh, the old guy, walked uphill both ways in the snow and all
Yeah,
that
right.
stuff. I'm just saying that in any tough market is where the real loan originators are made, because if you can work your way through the difficult market of 2022 and into 2023, or if you go back to, 08, 09, end of 07, if you go back to 99, you go back to 94, those are all really hard markets, some a little harder than others. But that's where like you really learned how to be a business person. That's where you really learned how to market yourself. That's where you really learned how to network. That's where you really learned how to sell new things. That's where you learned everything, right? I mean, and in the refi markets, you don't really learn that much. You're just in this process of just rinse, wash, repeat, and it becomes too easy, So that's why I asked you that question, because the things that you're talking about are things I wasn't sure if you got in, I knew it was, 15 years ago plus, but I just wasn't exactly sure what year. But that makes a lot of sense, because had you got in, let's say, in 2010 or 2011, you wouldn't have had to learn some of the things that you just articulated about how to source data, about how to develop a marketing message, about how to be properly scripted to where you can database these people properly and segment them. What kind of CRM do you use?
Right now, we use an internal CRM, and then we use Surefire, but it's not really a CRM so much as it is. So like I use our database management internally more than anything. So I'm probably a little more manual than I want to be. But I think the most important part is, do you have control over your data? And then can you deploy the right scripting and the right messaging? And I will tell you one thing, I don't care how good of a CRM you have, if you didn't make a relationship with that customer when you first had them, you can have the most expensive CRM in the world and it won't matter. I think the most important part of anything that we do is creating a great relationship, whether that be with a customer or a realtor or a listing agent. All of it's marketing noise. And right now, I mean, just as much as I do, that people are getting inundated with advertisements more than they ever have. Like the average amount of times that a company has to advertise in order to get a reply back is so much higher than it ever has been before. But if you didn't create that relationship up front, you're setting yourself up for failure in the long term. So that's mainly what we focus on, is creating an incredible relationship right out of the gate with our clients so that they actually will pick up the phone when we call.
Such an important point. I used to give a database management presentation way back in the day before you even got in the business. And I would always start by saying, let's redefine the term. It's relationship management. That's what database management is it's relationship management. But to your point, and I never thought of it this way before, so I really like what you just said, is that it has to start with you actually having a relationship. Like you can do a loan for somebody and not have a relationship with them. And then it is database management. Okay. But if you actually cultivate a relationship with the person, then now you're managing that relationship. And a part of that, and I want you to comment further, but a part of that is not just getting to know them and knowing what's important to them, but letting them get to know you a little bit too, right?
Absolutely. I think, in the beginning of my career, I was so dead set on being the consummate professional that everything had to be perfect. And what I found as I got a little older and then I had children was people yearn to be a part of a relationship where they understand both sides of what someone's life is. So like before, I would never answer a call if I had my kids around and they were, potentially talking or crying or whatever. And I'd be like, really like, be quiet, guys. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you a hilarious story about my kids and their perception of me later. But it was impactful because I answered a call and I was talking to a mother of three, and she heard my kids in the background. And she's like, you know what? I'm going with you. And I was like, well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. She's like, just stop. She's like, I know you're going through exactly what I'm going through. And if you're talking to me at 8 o'clock at night with those crazies in the background, like I've got here, she goes, I know I'm going to be in good hands. So it was a reminder that I don't have to be perfect, but I need to be human. And that's what people relate to. They relate to people who they can feel like you're talking to a human and not a robot. And I feel like sometimes we all strive to be so perfect in our business that we can forget that side, or at least I can hear Julie in the back of my head going, I can forget that side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would I get too worked up on it. And then I would notice that when I was just myself and I didn't worry about what was going on in the background, that's when I would create the best relationships with people and the longest lasting ones. So I think it's really important to be genuine with who you want to work with. And I think it's important that you work with people that you care about and that you can have real relationships with. Because I'm not I want 100 realtors to do 100 loans kind of guy. That's just not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'd much rather have 10 great relationships.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, if you have 100 realtors, that's chaos, right? I mean, you can't, those aren't even relationships at that point because you can't manage that many relationships. I mean, that's why you got guys like Greg Kingsbury and Mike Watson. I mean, these guys are just, they Sam Rosenblatt, they do well in every market. Like even right now, they're still doing fine. They're doing 25 deals a month and they're all purchases because they have like all the best relationships in their marketplace and they don't really need to do anything else other than, I mean, think about it. It's like there's not even a management requirement to a relationship if it's a real relationship. Like I don't have to manage my relationship with you. It's like, it's just like we're friends. When we see each other, we talk and that's it. It's like no effort. So it's like, what if you just had, a dozen referral partners? And by the way, like another point like that we should dive into is referral partners are not just realtors, accountants, financial planners, life insurance agents, divorce attorneys. There's tons of referral partners in your database of past clients that you just haven't connected enough with to realize they're a referral partner. I mean, there are people in there that'll refer you 5 deals a year if you
absolutely
connect with them. Like I'm sure you have some clients that are like that, right?
Unbelievably so. So like what you never realize until you really get to know somebody is, especially in these new home communities, who like the queen bee is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get a hold of her or him, that person will refer you more deals than your best realtor in a year, hands down.
Yes.
You run into a person that's an HR director for a company that's growing, hands down, best referral source. But you won't know unless you treat everybody the same way and you develop a relationship with them. You never know where your best lead's going to come from. But it rarely will necessarily be because you're out at some networking event or whatever. It'll be because you actually were human and you gave a crap. And when you had a conversation with somebody, they received it.
Made me think of a thought just dropped in my head about how we started this part of the conversation off with, redefining success. Like what if 2023 was about making 50 new friendships? That's it. That's your only goal. That's it.
Yeah.
And trust that the rest would take care of itself. Like friendships, like people that like you genuinely like, that are nice people that you have the same sense of humor with, you have something in common with, and as a result of it, like you just made sure that they knew what you do. And like, how many deals would you pick up? Like, I guarantee you'd pick up a bunch, and you'd probably land, like you said, 1 or 2 like big influencers that you just don't even know are influencers. Oftentimes, I don't even think it's the person that you talk to of the 2 in a married couple when you're doing a loan for them, because a lot of the times it's the high D, the driver, the type A personality, for those that don't know what a high D is, that is taking the lead, or the analytical one, the high C, is taking the lead on the financing decision. And then usually their partner, or a lot of times, maybe not usually, but a lot of times their partner is the social one, that is connected to a lot of people. And like you said, is the queen bee, whether it be male or female. And it's like, how many of those do we not even know? Because we just worked with the one person, and we didn't make the effort to try to connect with the other. I mean, there are a lot of influencers that we walk right past and don't even see them, right, in our life.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you don't know until you try it. And I think, I'm fortunate to have built a team where one of my teammates is incredible at setting relationships with clients and past customers. When I interviewed her for the first time, we talked for an hour and a half and nothing to do about mortgages. And I just said, I'm going to hire you and I'm going to figure it out afterwards, right? Like our motto this year is like, we're figuring it out. Be open to those relationships so that they can come in and fulfill your life. And to your point, yes, we create 50 meaningful relationships in the next year. Maybe we can be more successful in business, but that's only a part of what our life looks like, right? Like imagine having 50 new relationships and how you'd feel at the end of the year and what that would do for you just from an overall standpoint of your life. I think it would be so fulfilling as a challenge to try to go out and do that, not only for your business, but also for your personal side, because they're both going to go in tandem, right? Your mental health, your happiness is going to go with how you perceive yourself in the world. And I think it's a big part of it. What's interesting too, Tim, I feel like one of the things that we should talk about, especially, in this moment, is a lot of people are scared and a lot of people have been down. And there are people who are blaming what the market is on their success, and they're almost a victim of their circumstance. And then there's people like we've talked to who've been super successful where they have really embraced what this thing is as a giant opportunity to gain market share. And there's this awesome quote where it essentially says the pessimist blames the wind for its direction and the optimist says it's going to change, but the realist readjusts the sails. And I think all of us, what we have to do right now in this moment is we can be optimistic, but we also need to be realistic and readjust our sails and our course to make sure that we're navigating our team through these challenging times by finding wins and then making sure that we're doing everything that we're ready to do to get set up for a great future. Because this time frame that we've all been looking for is almost like a downtime after the last 2.5 years. This should be the time where everybody's getting done all of their projects. You're getting to see your family more than you have in the last 2.5 years, and then you're ready to take off and crush it. So now's the time to take off. It can't be a time of sitting.
What are give me the top three in your mind? I'm trying to play off the boat analogy, but I'm drawing a blank, so sure. I'm just going to ask it straight. What are the top three things that you think that originators should be focusing on in 2023 that will be a readjustment of their sales and allow them to catch the wind when it starts to blow?
I think number one, hands down, has to be making sure that you have detailed and correct information in your database, that you have trained your team appropriately. I think one of the reactions to the exponential growth in the last 2 years was people had teams that ballooned significantly. So everybody only learned just a little bit, and that was their only job. So now I think one of the most important things we can do is really dial in on our teams and train them well, have a detailed database. And then I think more than anything, Tim, it's get out there and make relationships. Because if you don't do that, a great database and a great team won't be worth anything. You have to get out there and get in front of people. And it's none of that is some rocket science like new technology, but it is absolutely what will help us succeed in the future.
I think that this central piece, I agree with everything. The first and third were, to me, like the more obvious ones: integrity in your database and nurturing it and building new relationships. But that middle piece, man, is the part that a lot of people miss. That's such an important one that you make, which is what I would call it is increasing the versatility of your team through cross-training them on how to do a variety of things, including calling your database. It doesn't have to just be you that's reconnecting with your database and nurturing it. It can be the right scripting to where somebody's calling on your behalf. And I'm not saying to outsource the activity. Don't hear that. I'm saying to gang tackle the activity, right? Like better to have all three of you, if you have a 3-person team, calling 5 people a day and connecting with them. But that requires some leadership, because as a leader, you need to be able to sit down with your team when times get difficult. And I know that you've done this, and I want you to piggyback off this to the extent that you have something you'd like to share. Cause I know you had to, you got a big company, you had to go through some cuts. I know that it was painful for you. A part of that process is to get real with your team and be like, look, this is a storm that's coming and we're going to weather it together, but we're going to all need to roll our sleeves up and help each other. And there are going to be things that I'm going to ask you to do that you haven't done before. And there's going to be things that you're going to like a lot probably. And then there are going to be things that maybe you don't like so much, but we're doing it to get through this as a team. And I need to make sure that you're versatile for me. So that creates greater job security for you, because the more versatile you are, the more that I need you. So it's a win-win for everybody. I mean, but you need to be having these conversations with them if you haven't already, and recalibrate what being a team together looks like. And it's such an important point that you made, is that, the last run was so fast and furious and was about thinning out, job descriptions as much as you can, just because you had to try to push as many loans through the pipeline. And then you have poorly trained people. So tell us more about that. What do you suggest? How do you go about doing the training?
Yeah.
Are you stealing the
I think it's
strategy, or?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a couple of pieces to this that I want to touch on. I think one is everything that you said is spot on, and it is conversations that I've had with my people. In addition to that, what it really does is it gives me a mindset to not just look at what this moment is in time, where everybody can cross train and do some different jobs. It really tries to give me a better playbook so that when it does come back and we do grow again, that I'm growing much more efficiently and much more intelligently without wasting resources, right? I remember being in the midst of this giant refi run, and corporately we're adding people that we barely even know, that we barely even interview, because we just need a body to process a loan and get it out. And I will tell you, one of the more recent days when we had to do a larger scale layoff was the hardest day of my career, and I will never forget it. And there was a lot of responsibility that I felt to that, of going, I can't grow like this again, so that I don't have to do this if it ever comes back. So take the lessons that we learned from what the pain is in this market and don't repeat it the next run. During this market, what I'm focusing in on with my team is going, how can they be more well-rounded, and how can we all cover for each other so that we can always have an insulated tribe? Because the way I treat my team is like they're family members to me, and they're not actual family, but they are to me. So I want to make sure that these guys are as rock solid as possible. And what inevitably is starting to happen is there are other originators that may have lost their support staff who are now coming to work with my team because they know that they're solid and that they know their range is much greater. But all of us can grow, self included. So we're sitting down as a team and going, how can we start the year? What did we do well? What do we need to focus on? And it's not rocket science, but my guys have to be able to pick up the phone and talk to a customer and give them that warm and fuzzy feeling to where they think that they're talking to myself. And I will tell you, it has been one of the proudest moments of my career, Tim. I was listening to my production partner talk on the phone to one of my clients, and I was blown away. I just sat outside of her office and I listened to it. And when you have come up in the business your whole life and you've grown a team, there's certain kind of milestones that you hit. But I'll tell you, the fulfillment that I get from watching my team succeed is greater than any of my other, of anything that I've ever done in the business. So there's a lot of fulfillment that can come, but you have to put in the time. You can't fake it. You can't have anybody else do it. You can't outsource the training. There's a lot of training that you can record and put online, but there's nothing that will ever substitute your time and your energy into that human, because they don't forget it. And it's what creates loyal people, in my opinion.
Yeah. And loyal people, a loyal team is a fucking dangerous team, man, because if you have a team that's been together for a long time, man, yeah, it's like so valuable. It's incredible. I mean, it's valuable from a perspective of freedom. So you can actually step away and go to an L360 retreat for a week like you did and not have to check in because you had a team taking care of it, and then you could learn and grow, and like, I mean, that kind of freedom. It's freedom with your family. It's freedom to actually have a balanced life. And yes, they need to feel that you care. The really, if you were watching this on a video format, you saw the emotion come up in Josh's eyes when he was sharing just now. And I remember when you went through this experience and we talked on a weekend, I think it was, and a couple of months ago, and it was hard for you, what you were going through. And but make no mistake about it, they know that it was hard for you. And they know that you cared about them. And that's what great leadership is. A great leader cares about his people or her people. And it is painful when you care that much, but at the same time, that's why you have great team members, because you do care.
For sure.
The training part, to comment on that just for a second, like for everybody that is kind of contemplating that, the utilization of video is so powerful right now. I mean, if you haven't recorded yourself on Zoom, created a library of you selling so your teammates can watch it, that's a miss right there. I mean, for sure. If you haven't had your processor recording important things that he or she does when they're processing a file, for your processing assistant or transaction coordinator or somebody in the future, that's a miss. You definitely need to be doing that. You should have a library of videos of, and I got this idea from Jay Dacey. I mean, from talking to him in a coaching session, and I was like, that's brilliant what he's doing. His team is just recording themselves working, but putting a little time into it to make it, to make it dynamic. And then they watch each other's, game film, if you want to use the Ryan Grant terminology to it. Right. So it's like, right now, if you're going to all call on the database as an example together, record a couple of calls of you doing it and then have them watch it but then spend the time with them, to your point, to give them redirective feedback, to connect with them, to applaud them, to encourage them, to give them those small victories and momentum and all of that as well. You got to couple the two together.
Yeah. And I think that you just can't fake caring about somebody. We live in a world full of salespeople in this mortgage business. So like one of the things that they're all trained to do is see through bullshit. And I think that your teammates are trained the same way. Like you train them to make sure to feel people's iteration of the smallest, vibrations in their voice so that they can understand what's going on. Know that they're looking at you with the same lens, so that if they don't feel that coming from you, it's crap. Like it's never going to sit. So like you actually have to give a shit and care and make sure that you're driving them to be better and that you're showing them the next step. And as a leader, I think it's important to be able to address what's going on in the marketplace right now with them and say, look, this is challenging and none of us have seen what this is. But that doesn't mean that we don't know the things that make us successful. And we're going to execute on those, and we are going to gain so much market share that we have to put our heads down now. And like, we're going to all be looking back in the rear view and going, oh, we're really happy we did what we did. We're going to give it every last bit of energy that we can, because it is a different market. Now, a lot of these people have only seen success in the business that are in it right now. So having to coach people through that is a very rewarding experience for me right now. But it's also a challenging one.
I get asked this question a lot. Of all the careers that you've had, and I've had three. First, an owner of a mortgage company and an originator. Second was the creation of Loan Toolbox, an educational platform for loan originators. And third is my coaching company. The question I get asked is, which one do you like the most? And the answer is a landslide, L360. I'm really blessed to be able to facilitate this program. We're about ready to go into our 11th year. And this is a program that just simply changes people's lives. And there's a long laundry list of top professionals in the industry that you probably know real well that have graduated from Leadership 360's signature program. I'm super excited to work intimately with the next group. We only take 12 people annually, and this is the only one-on-one coaching that I do. And we've begun the interview process. So if you feel that you're ready to take your business business and your life to the next level and embark upon a 1-year journey that includes an 8-day business and life planning retreat in Costa Rica, a 4-day implementation retreat in Malibu, one-on-one and group coaching every month for a full year, you should go to leadership360now.com and complete an application so we can reach out to you and start the interview process. Once again, that's leadership360now.com and complete an application so we can begin to get to know you a little bit. But don't trust me. In the show notes of this episode is a series of testimonials from the current group. I think you'll be impressed with what they have to say, and they're speaking firsthand from their experience. I hope you're enjoying today's episode, and back to the 360 experience. Let's transition just for a second. And so, I mean, on one hand, you're leading your team of originators, and then you've got your own private loan team that you're leading, but then you have like a whole nother component to the company that you're responsible for as well. That's a very important component. So tell us about that. And I want to tie that into training your people about products and new things to sell and all that, because right now that's a very important thing. So just give us a backdrop on that first.
Sure. So one of my roles at our company is I'm our company's chief lending officer. And essentially what that is I am the production arm that is responsible for helping to develop new loan product. And that wasn't a role when I came into the business, but it was a role that I ended up creating because I'm one of those people that when I get told no, but I don't ever really get an explanation from a secondary marketing guy, it just sent me through the roof. So I went on this quest for information, and through that quest developed a lot of relationships. And then inevitably what was happening was I was talking to our end loan investors directly. And now what's great is I have a partnership where I am working in direct concert with our secondary marketing specialist to go out and develop product that actually would sell in the street. So I spend a lot of time talking to these investors, but where I really have found pay dirt is creating relationships with local regional banks and credit unions, because I'm originating. So I should absolutely know exactly what's going to sell on the street. I'm right next to my guys every day. And I can, not only can I decide what would be a great tool to sell, but I can also then have a real conversation with my team as to what is available in the marketplace. I can't tell you how many calls I get from people at other companies like, man, my products stink. I don't have this or I don't have that. And I'm able to talk to them in a different manner because I have been there and I've done research and I've talked to these people, and it's not easy. Being at a company for a product is going to be like you're going to hop around a million times before you ever get settled. But taking the time to be part of the solution, that's a whole different deal. And it is so much more rewarding. So what we've been able to do is go out, create these products in partnership to be able to offer our loan officers. And then you're able to have real conversations about how do you sell this product that other people aren't. Because man, I feel like when we go through markets like we have for the last 2 years and you see people post these huge numbers, as managers, you just assume that they're great salespeople through any market. And the challenge is a lot of them, I can't believe how many people didn't know what a buy down was, a temporary buy down. Yeah. Like we made this assumption that everybody just knows, and you can't do that. And you have to be able to go out and create new products, but creating a new product without the training, you might as well not even do it. So go create the product. But the more important part is can you script the training so that people understand what to sell? And I think that's super important. And I've been happy to be able to be a part of it.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually, to me. Like, I don't know if I'd have a lot of fun trying to convince, try to create the product part, but learning how to sell it, that sounds like a lot of fun, because it's like you talk about the buy down, like it's not just that they didn't know what one was and how to structure it, but it's something that's slightly complex in terms of selling it. I mean, it's not like selling a 30-year fixed. I mean, it's a more complex sell than a 30-year fixed or even a hybrid arm. I mean, you have to explain how the financial mechanics of it work to a lot of people for it to make sense to them in terms of what's happening, and then in terms of what could be left over if you get out of it in 9 months with the reserve account and all of these things. But again, that's what makes a great loan originator, is that a great loan originator figures out a new product that could give them a competitive edge in the marketplace, that can be uniquely and strategically utilized to help, and then figures out how to sell it. And
Right.
that's what pivoting when the market changes looks like. That's what that sail on the boat looks like right there. So give us an example of a couple of products that you think are important for originators to have in their arsenal right now as we transition, as it's difficult to find deals other than the 2-1 buy down.
Yeah, I will get to that in a second, Tim. But one of the other things that I think is important is anybody listening to this who is sitting there going like, well, I don't really have that relationship with my company. I think the most important part is try to become part of the solution as opposed to just being a person who whines about the problem. I will tell you this. I would talk to our team, and I would say, listen, if you hear of anybody who has anything, just send it to me and I'll track it down and we'll do it. It was like I mobilized this incredible army, and I was getting referrals in from all of my originators over and over and over again of people that they heard that had some great product on the street. So if you're listening to this and you're going like, how do I get started? That's the way to start. It always starts at the street level and then referring it into somebody who cares. So mobilize your army and make an army for yourself. But to pivot and talk about what you said from a product standpoint, I think there's a couple of things, Tim. I think number one, you need to be able to have a creative product to walk into a new home sales rep community with. So we offer bridge lending, which allows people to buy a house before they have to sell the other one. Portfolio lending, which is assume the credit box is this. You're going to color slightly outside of those lines, but it's going to be a great high quality product. I think you have to have a good ARM product, and I think you need to have construction lending. There are a lot of places at these metropolitan areas that have really blown up to where there's no land left, and the only type of housing that's available is some type of renovation or tear down. So I think rounding out and having a really well-rounded portfolio is the most important thing that you can do, because you need something to talk to your real estate agents about that they may not have. Luckily, we've seen this big influx of first-time homebuyer products that has come into the market. But realistically, in a lot of the higher metropolitan areas, it's like trying to pull a Band-Aid over a bullet hole, right? They can lower the loan level price adjustment, but it's only going to do so much to the prices of homes. And these first-time homebuyers are having a hard time. So I think if those aren't going to be effective in your marketplace, you need to really have some good portfolio, some construction, and a good ARM.
I don't know if I don't think I ever told you this, because I don't know that I've said this to anybody in a long time, but I actually funded the first construction loan that Chase Manhattan ever received from a broker. They had just come out with this new and my point in bringing that up is just that was a very important loan in my career, because it actually, in addition to the fact that it spawned 2 banking relationships. It became consistent referral sources to me, because, the banks were doing the land loans, but they weren't doing the construction lending. And they were looking for somebody that could either do construction or construction to perm. And I was able to then articulate my ability to do it, because I had actually gotten one in the door and closed it. And then I could speak the language a little bit, but it is all about learning the product, right? And I mean, you talk about the tear downs. I mean, it all dovetails into having, as you said, something to talk with real estate agents about, but it also dovetails into the importance of actually educating yourself, right? Because like, if you don't know how to structure loans, then it doesn't matter if you have a product. If you don't know how to put it together, because you haven't taken the time to educate yourself on it, then you're not going to be able to sell it with confidence, because you're going to be worried in the back of your mind as to whether or not you're going to be able to get the deal done. So talk to the importance of that. Like, what's the educational process? Because you talk about, like, I wrote them down, like portfolio loans, bridge loans. Okay. So like there's guidelines for bridge loans, right? And it's not just like your standard underwriting guidelines, or there's, guidelines for construction lending that are very different from
Very different.
that of conventional lending. So how important is, and what would you say to originators about becoming a student of those types of products so you then can sell them successfully?
It literally means everything. So one of the things that we do at our company that I'm incredibly proud of is we focus a lot on the giver's gain. And we had this one originator in particular who is incredibly skilled at construction lending. And she was willing to take the time to put together an entire day worth of training on construction lending. Because if you want to do it at a high level, it really takes that kind of training. But not only do we make our originators go through that training in order to be able to offer the product, because what we don't want is we don't want anyone to fail that has our reputation behind it. Because in the builder community is a very tight community and they all talk. So if you have one person mess something up, it's messed up for everyone. So every single person that wants to offer the product has to go through the day-long training. It's taught by an originator at a very high level. And then the best part of all of it is they have to do a sales call, a mock sales call with us. And then we get to listen to it. And then we get to vote on whether or not they pass. And wow. It's amazing. That's cool. Like that's if you really haven't, cool. Like when we're talking about training, if you haven't taken the time to do mock sales calls with your originators, this is such a great time to do it, especially when they're learning how to cross sell, because you find that some of your most experienced people, they'll catch a frog in their throat, and it's a little nerve-wracking experience because you're in front of your peers now. So don't assume that they know exactly how to sell these products, but do those mock sales calls, and some of the results are incredible. Some of our least experienced people just absolutely knocked it out of the park, and it was so awesome to see that experience. And then some of our more experienced people just needed to brush up on it because they haven't done it in a while. It was like rushing off the 2-1 buy down book again and going like, how do I make sure I educate people the right way on it? Because at the core of it, you said it, you nailed it. Our job in our business is to be an educator to our teams, to our customers, and to our agents or spheres of influence. And if you're not educating your team and the people that work with you at a high level, then you can't expect high results. You just can't. It's not fair to them. So we put them through quite the training in order to be able to offer the product.
I mean, I didn't expect that as your answer, and that's really an awesome system that you have, and it puts them under a little bit of pressure. And then I would assume that there's some cross-pollination of each other's scripting, right? So like you can learn from your peers, because a lot of times it's just piecing together a few different phrases, a few different lines that, you want to insert in your existing presentation, and it puts a prop motor behind your presentation and enhances your conversion ratio significantly. I also think, how do you feel about the potential future of cash out refis? Because I also think that is a different sell. It's a different sell, and it's a different loan structure. And I do think that there's going to be a market for that if we get rates coming down into the 5% range, which I think very easily could happen in 2023. And, I mean, somebody might be at 3 3/8 or 3.5, but it may still make sense for them to take that out and get cash out to consolidate debt. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, to your exact point, I think a lot of people will be like a racing horse with blinders on. Like they think they've got a 3.5% rate and that there's no circumstance whatsoever that could make sense for them to actually pull cash out in an environment like this. And they may be going through challenging times and running up credit card bills in the 18 and 19%, or really just not making the most out of what they could utilize their mortgage for. And I think a big part that if people haven't done it to this point that they should start transitioning is you need to set your expectation with the customer that you are a debt service manager. You're not just a mortgage guy. You're a debt service manager. So it's your job to be able to surveil the landscape of someone's debt. and help them manage that in a way that is all encompassing. So you've got your financial planner who will help you manage your assets on the other side of the balance sheet. I'm the guy that's got to help you manage and utilize your number one asset, which in most cases is your actual home itself, to be able to work for you. And there's a lot of people. I mean, Tim, you and I have seen the stats on student loans, on credit card loans, and what happens in these type of environments. Right now, it is skyrocketing credit card debt because the rates are up, and we're plowing right into what looks like is going to be a recession. So there are definitely some times that are going to make sense to take someone out of those lower rates and put them into a broader scope cash out refinance. But if you haven't set yourself up as a debt service manager, it's going to be more challenging for your consumer without you being proactive about it to think of you in that scenario and how can you save them money.
Yeah, no,
so you got to get out there and try.
They're not going to think of you. I'll go further. I think it'd be very strange. I don't know that I ever received a call from a client that said, "Hey Tim, it's Josh, and I'd like to pay off all my credit card debt and take cash out on my house." Maybe an occasional, but that's very uncommon because A, they don't think that way, and B, it's actually kind of humbling. Like, people don't really want to make that call. Like, it's a bad situation that they're in. But if you are proactive in communicating to them, and like I said, this is a time for you to be looking into what would be a product to sell to somebody if rates were at 5.25%, and what would their credit card debt need to be at, and if their mortgage rate was at, like, you have the time to do these calculations right now and to kind of zero in and then start thinking about, when you make these calls to your database and you're touching base with them, working that into your scripting and asking them how they're, how's your revolving credit card debt right now? I mean, have you made a lot of purchases? I know that during the holidays, people buy things, rates have gone up on those. I'm wanting to check in on that because my job is to assist you in managing your debt, all of your debt. And that's included, including your credit card debt and your car payments and all of that. And you gather this information. So then when the rates drop, you actually have something to call and talk to them about that is of service to them. And that's what creating deals looks like. It's like proactively thinking about what I can do to help people and what people need right now, and then contacting them about it. And the same holds true for people who, there are people out there in your database right now that don't want to be in the house they're in, but they can't justify moving, because what are they going to do? Trade 3.5 for 6.75? No, they're kind of locked in. But if rates came down to 5, they might be willing to move to get that extra bedroom or to downsize or to have some extra yard. You should be having those conversations with them right now and then letting them know that you're going to watch rates for them. And when that opportunity unfolds, you're going to proactively contact them and let them know, hey, you know what? If you want to list your house, right now might be a good time to do that. And I'd be happy to refer you to a real estate agent who can do the listing for you as well.
And what you said, I don't want anybody to miss part of that. But when you said the 6.75 back down to the 5s, if you haven't been talking to your client database about the run up, 5 is still going to seem like a lot compared to somebody at 3.5. But if you've been monitoring them and you've been talking to them that your rates are 6.5%, 7%, and then the rates come back down to 5, that's a different mindset for a consumer. And they need to be educated along the entire pathway. So I think that part is really important and can't be understated enough, that they need to know the pathway of rates so that when it does come back down from the high, there's a different mental shift and a different mental picture in their head as to what a good rate is, because it will be a good rate compared to what we've been through.
Correct. You're resetting the psychological definition of what a good interest rate is. And yes, loan originators never make that call. They just say, what am I going to call and tell them about? That rates are at 6 when they have 3.5? Why would I make that call? Because of what you just said, because we're resetting the psychological definition of what a good interest rate is. Rates stay up there above 6 for long enough. 4 7/8 is going to sound like a spectacular rate. But if they never knew we were at 7, it doesn't sound so spectacular. And yeah, I mean, you remember I put that out in the WhatsApp thread for L360, right?
That
was
absolutely.
when I was in Europe. I was like, I was thinking about work when I shouldn't have been thinking about work is the
Well, we
bottom
were
line.
all thinking that too.
And I was going like, what would I be saying right now? Like they all need to be calling everybody and, you know, making sure that as these rates climb the ladder, people know about it. I mean, you know, it's all these little things, bro, that matter. I mean, these are the little things that make deals happen. And when you're in a market, you know, where, you know, you're doing 5 deals a month, if you could figure out how to do 8 because you're creative and you're looking for deals, that's a big percentage wise. That's a big difference in your income. It's like almost doubling your income, you know, and in some cases you can double your income very easily. What are you working on personally right now in your life? Anything you want to share?
Oh, a lot. Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't know, a year like this
Are you working on
is one.
are you working on trying to be taller than Craig Strent?
Look, there's some things that you can't fight, Tim, and I have redirected my sales into looking at other things. I got Craigie by just a
I know.
hair.
I know you did. That was actually more
But
for him to hear than was for me to throw at you. I just wanted to work that
but
fact in that you're a quarter inch
I
taller than
mean,
Craig Strent.
listen, I might be a little taller, but I will look up to that man until the day I die. He's a great guy
Well
and
said.
one of the
Me
most
too.
influential leaders I could ever meet.
Yes. Yes. Well said.
But no, I mean, personally, oh man, I've been going through that. We're doing the clean cleanse. My wife and I are doing it together. Thank God for my wife. But she's got everything together. We're doing that this year. Part of my misogi was either getting back into martial arts or hockey. It's looking like I'm going to go back into the martial arts world this year. So I'm really excited about that. I spent about 7.5 years doing Krav Maga, and it was incredible. And I'm kind of missing that aspect of my life. So I'm going to jump back into that. And during the pandemic, I got into cooking, and I never would have thought I would have ever done that. And I enjoyed it so much that I'm going to jump back into that some more this year too. So I got a lot of fun personal goals.
You going to take any cooking lessons or?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I tell people all the time, I don't know if you even know this, but I mean, I love to cook and I've been cooking for 30 years now, probably in my life. And I took cooking lessons for a year when I lived in Italy. So I learned, and then I lived with an Italian chef for a decade. So, I mean, I've been around cuisine and food and the making of food, and it's definitely a part of my life. The most important thing, bro, to cooking is prep. Like that's the most important thing. Like the greatest advice I could give anybody if they want to cook but they never do is learn how to chop fast. It's huge because otherwise the process takes too long and people then say, I don't have the time. Like I used to watch Antonio. He could make a meal in 20 minutes that would take me 45 because his prep time was so fast that next thing you know, he's actually cooking the food and I'm still prepping, you know? And it's like, so that's like a really, really big thing. But are you planning on taking any cooking classes or anything, or where are you going to learn from?
Yeah. So I'm going to jump into cooking classes on the second half of the year. The way I've got it scheduled out now is I want to get more of the physical transformation done in the beginning of the year,
and then fuck it all up,
screw it all up in the end. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely the goal.
Sounds like a good idea.
You gotta have goals. So really the goal is I want to eat later in the year. And then now I got to get my health in line.
Yeah. Right. But, why do you think I'm doing the clean cleanse at the end of January? It's so I can set myself up to go to Italy this summer and eat like, you know, nobody's business. Right. So yes.
Absolutely. There is nothing I enjoy eating. I would say that. So I definitely, we're going to do what needs to happen for the body and then try to also enjoy myself a little bit. But no, I think honestly, ever since I started the program with you, I have been enthralled in trying to learn new things about myself, trying to refine a morning routine and then trying to refine an evening routine. And then you get on the phone. So like when I talk about doing things in small steps and gaining momentum, like one of the first people I talked to about a morning routine was Josh Metal. And like, if you ever talk to Josh Metal, it's almost like when they released Mark Wahlberg's thing and he wakes up at like 2:30 in the morning and he's, you know, doing yoga on top of the president's head and then, you know, doing 800 sit-ups while playing golf. Right. So like you talk to Metal and like, I think we talked, it was me, him and Craigie and it was like 8 a.m. and he's been up for 15 hours, and he's like he's making a salad, and then he pulls out these like hand done broccoli sprouts, right? So it's like, I'm not going to start at the broccoli sprouts. I'm going to go backwards. I'm just going to wake up early, and then I'm going to take a little time to meditate, and then get a workout in. Like that's going to be the base.
And then have a cheeseburger with broccoli sprouts on it.
Correct. Exactly. That's exactly right. I mean, the guy is a machine for a reason, but no, I've been taking it in steps and enjoying it and trying to learn as much as I can. But no, I've really focusing on my sleep, because I didn't realize how bad of sleep I was getting until I got one of those, those monitors, and I was not getting good sleep for a lot of reasons. So it was good to dive into that, and I feel a million times different.
Very cool. Very cool that you're going to get into cooking. Very cool that you're getting back into martial arts. A lot of people that do jujitsu out there now, man. That's like a really, really popular sport. Have you ever tried that?
Oh yeah. So it was a foundational part of Krav Maga. I grew up playing hockey, so I always liked kind of the physical interaction. But jujitsu it's such an incredible sport because it's so, once you get past like the first part of it, it's so technical. So the way that your mind works to kind of solve deals would be very practical in a jujitsu arena. And I think the number one thing is it if you haven't been humbled enough in your life and you need to be humbled, go on a jujitsu mat. That first time you ever get on a jujitsu mat with somebody who knows what they're doing, it doesn't matter their size, they're gonna kick the absolute crap out of you. And it takes you to a lot of deep breaths to get through it, but you do, and you get on the other side. There's a lot of really incredible jujitsu people out there.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys all the guys that I listen to on podcasts are actually all jujitsu people. Joe Rogan, Lex Fridman, Sam Harris. I mean, those guys they all talk about jujitsu. I'm intrigued by it because it's like a chess match, right? Like a psychological chess match to a great degree. What's your favorite quote? Like, yeah,
it's actually right behind me. It's a bit long, but it's from Theodore Roosevelt. It's the Cliff Note version is it's not about the person who wants to boast and brag, but it really is about the person with dirt and sweat and mud on their face that's in the arena, because they at least know what it's like to have tried and failed or tried and succeeded. But I'll read it to you. It's go ahead. Yeah, it's not the critic who counts, not the man who points how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails daringly, greatly, so that he knows his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And where I first heard that, Tim, was video. Yeah, the video from Brene Brown. Yeah. And I was sitting in my living room with my mom and my wife, and literally like it hit me hard. And my mom is like an empath. So she immediately looked over and knew, didn't say a word, and gave me this for Christmas. And I was just like completely blown away. So it's a very meaningful quote.
What's meaningful about it to you?
My whole life, I don't think like I would do fine in school, but things would never hit me easily, even though it looked to other people like it did. So I was always trying and getting knocked down or failing, and then having to pick myself back up again and go for it again. And it's like it feels like there's a lot of heart in the struggle, and it's the part that I think I have enjoyed the most, is trying to pick myself up off of my feet or back up onto my feet and do better. And I feel like that kid who just keeps running into the wall until he finally breaks through. And it's got a lot of meaning.
Must be I would imagine that you really love seeing that happen in sport.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Like
I mean, I'm
when the underdog just like
a
just
hundred
blows
percent.
everybody away. Yeah.
So that was kind of me in hockey, right? So I played hockey my whole life. I'm not a big guy, whether you know me or not, and I would always just get wrecked. So I had to be faster than everybody, and fight for everything that I ever had, whether it was in sports or whether it was in life. I just fought and fought and fought, and that's the way I look at life now. Is you got to fight for what you care about, and you're going to get knocked down a bunch, but you got to keep going. And it feels feels very meaningful to have that sitting behind me on a regular basis.
Super cool story. I mean, it's what makes us stronger, right? I mean, it's that's where the growth occurs is in the struggle and not being in the known, not being in our comfort zone. Um, Anything that you would share as a top business philosophy, something that you think is meaningful to you, kind of maybe a mantra about business that you think would be meaningful for people to hear?
Yeah, I think right now in particular, I think the most important part is to just care about your people and show them that you care, because there's a lot of people in a lot of pain right now, and there's no part of it that's going to be more like success is only defined by what your definition of it is in your head. And I think creating meaningful relationships that we can ultimately achieve freedom to do what we want is success to me. So if I would encourage people who are struggling or who are leading people to just reach out and create stronger relationships for the people that matter in their life. Because I think the last 2.5 years, I certainly neglected a lot of relationships that I shouldn't have. And I am fighting really hard to make sure that all of those are as strong as they can be. But there's a lot of scared people right now. And I think it's our job as leaders in the community to really fight for those relationships and help bring people up.
How do you feel about your, um, what would I call it? How do you feel about your sensitivity?
Oh, I'm definitely a softie.
Oh, I know you are. I know you are. That's why I
Yeah,
asked. But I'm wanting to know how
I'm a
you feel
sensitive.
about it.
Yeah, I used to be vulnerable and worried about it in the past as almost like a sign of weakness. And I got to this point where I just didn't care anymore in terms of I have enough people who love me and who care about me to where it allowed me to be my true self. And I care about a lot of people. And if anything, I think one of the things I had to learn was setting some appropriate boundaries. Because quite oftentimes, what I would do is the complete opposite, where I would only care about what was going on in someone else's life that I cared about. And I would neglect everything that I needed to do for myself. So I have to recognize my sensitivity for caring about people and wanting to help them, but at the same time set enough boundaries to where I'm still able to do what I need to do to live a healthy, successful life.
It's your superpower. It's it's not only not a weakness, it's your superpower. I mean, as your friend and as somebody who's spent a lot of time with you now, um, that's what I see. I see like, wow, like this, I'd follow this dude in a heartbeat because I know that he cares and I can see it in his eyes and I can feel it in his heart. And yeah, your emotions, I would imagine, that there are times where you wish that you weren't as emotional as you are. Cause that's
Oh, for sure.
kind of how I am too.
For sure.
But you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. I mean, because when people can feel you, then they can start to develop trust for you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Tim, I was at a place in life where I was trying to make too many people happy, and it just ran me right into the ground. And what you end up finding out is that you should be able to live. I feel like I should be able to live um, unencumbered and as 100% for the people that I care about as I can. And if somebody thinks that I'm embarrassing because I care about somebody, then that's not a person that should be in my life, right? And that separation was a really healthy one. And it takes really good friends sticking in your corner and telling you like, hey, let that person go. It's okay to be able to kind of step away and realize that how I feel about people and how I care is nothing to be ashamed of. And if anything, it's something I try to lean into now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that when you go through a situation like the one that you went through where you had to let people go on your team, that's where
Yeah.
you probably wish that you didn't feel as big as you feel. And
Yeah.
yet at the same time, the fact that you do feel as big as you do means that you're open and that you allow people in and you allow people to feel you, which is where connection and leadership and love and friendship and all of that happens. Um, and yet at the same time, when you're that open, you also have to be somewhat governing of your energy, because there are people who it's probably not healthiest for you to let in, because
Yeah.
they are not a healthy person for you to be connected with. Right. So
Yeah.
how, how have,
100%.
how have you, um, how have you gone through the process of learning how to draw those boundaries? Because I'm sure there are people listening that
Yeah.
are empaths like you are and that feel big like you do, and that would probably benefit a lot from hearing that.
Yeah. I would say this first and foremost, it's definitely a process. I think first and foremost, I have failed in every way that I could have with that. But what has really helped me is to, number one, seek advice and seek counseling on it if you're having a hard time with it. And then number two, have somebody who you spend a lot of time with on a regular basis that can almost be a barometer for you when you're involved in your day to day. One of my production partners, and then my wife Heather, is an incredible barometer for me to help kind of bring me back to level set as to who I need to be focused on. There's a great book called Boundaries, that's worth a read, and it's hard because I want to constantly be everything to everyone, and when you do that, there's a lot of people who are just going to take advantage of you. So there has to be a give and take. And what I have started to notice more is when I give, if there's no reciprocation, then that starts to make a mental note in my head as to go like, all right, I got to figure out where this person is long term for my life, and having somebody that's always around me, whether it's my partner at work or my wife at home, that is able to kind of bounce stuff off of, that's really helpful. So I hope that people can find somebody to have their back and watch out for them, but at the same time, like, seek advice, seek knowledge on it, to set boundaries, because a lot of people will take advantage of you if you are so giving.
Have you have you had to deal with guilt associated with drawing a boundary, or maybe even if it's not guilt,
Massively.
and or like worry that they won't like you, like, or that you're
Yeah.
going to be in trouble, I mean, like, do
Oh
those
yeah.
things come up for you? Okay, so how have you worked with that?
um I got to a place where I was in enough pain to have a pretty aggressive reaction to some people in my family, where I needed to push back and draw a boundary. And I probably drew it too hard in the beginning. But it came with a lot of back and forth. And it really was a work in progress, but it never would have happened. And I never would have drawn a healthy boundary had I not taken that first step. So taking that first step with somebody that is maybe not draining your energy, but it doesn't have a boundary, and that they need one, taking that step to say, like, I need to draw a constructive boundary with you, and holding them to that is a hard thing to do because you love them. I mean, if you come to one of our family reunions, it's filled with love, but there's a whole lot of different families that have proliferated through my life. And trying to draw boundaries between family is sometimes the hardest, but it's also the most important. And when you do it with a heart behind it and you're not cold, then people know that you care, but they also know that there are certain lines that can't be crossed.
Well said. I also think that just kind of owning it is important. So it could sound something along the lines of, one of the things that I've been really working on is taking good care of myself and managing my energy and my experience. And I realized that sometimes I just come with all of my openness and full heartedness to every situation, and then I get depleted, and I need to start to take better care of myself. So there's going to be times where I might ask you for some space. There might going to be times where I might say no because I just don't have it in me. I just want to be the best version of myself when I'm with you. And in order for me to do that, I need to make sure that I'm having some boundaries to take good care of myself. And, listen, I mean, if somebody can't respect that, then I'm not so sure that's the person that you want to have a relationship with anyway. So,
and Tim, there's also something where you could talk to somebody about where you do want to have a relationship with them, but there are certain topics that you're just not willing to go down the rabbit hole with them on.
mm-hmm.
And those are things that you need to be able to address directly with them and say, like, listen, I love you and I want to hang out with you anytime we can, but we are not going to talk about this because it never goes well. And whether you have that dynamic between family members or coworkers or friends, that's an acceptable thing to say and hold people to. But the first time they start to break that rule, you gotta stick your foot back in there and go, no, we said we weren't going to do this. It's a really healthy process to go through. And then once you do it with the people that matter, they respect it. And then you end up developing a much better relationship afterwards. At least that's what I've experienced.
Yeah. And you can add into that, and I care about our relationship, and I care enough about it to say that I don't think that these topics are the topics we should be talking about, because I think it could hurt our relationship, and I don't want that to happen. I mean, that's the truth. And it's also something hopefully they can get their head around and not take it personally, like you're rejecting them in some way. Right. Thanks for listening to today's show. And before we wrap, I want to remind you about the Complete Referral Partner Success System, a step-by-step process with over 3 hours of scripted videos that teach you exactly how to go about cultivating new referral partner relationships that will significantly increase your leads and grow your business for the long term. Learn the secrets used by top producers. Many of them are my coaching clients, and the strategies that I use successfully as an originator myself. You're going to learn how to nail the first meeting, that precious and important meeting that you have with that potential referral partner for the first time. You're going to learn how to cross-sell every listing agent on the transaction, and you're going to discover how to stop selling and start connecting and start building long-term relationships. There are over 20 powerful scripts educating you on exactly what to say, provided both in video and written transcripts. And for podcast listeners, we have a special offer. For a limited time, you get 50% off. Normally, RPSS is $899, and to podcast listeners, it's only $449.50. Use the link in the podcast description for more information and get your 50% off discount, or go to www.performance-experts.com. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and we look forward to future episodes that educate you and help you in the growth of your business. If you could wind the clock back and talk to your 18-year-old self about anything, what would be some of the coaching that you would give to him?
That's a great question. I think I would say, take a deep breath, because I would find myself getting really ramped up about situations that didn't require that kind of energy. I would have put more of an emphasis on my health earlier on. I was one of those guys that was brought up to just work and work and work and work and work. But at the same time, we would work from 6 a.m. until 9 o'clock at night, and then party until 1 or 2. So I just beat the hell out of my body when I was younger. So I would have tried harder to be more balanced. And then I definitely would have given my younger self advice to just be kind to everyone through all periods of time, because you never know what people are going through. I remember going through a wild set of range of emotions, in my mid-20s, where no matter how I was feeling is how I would portray myself. And I would take that back in a heartbeat if I could. But I think I fought through it as much as I can. And I try to look at it now and go like, wow, that guy didn't know nearly as much as he does now. But would have definitely said to slow down and be thankful for what you have, for sure.
There's a a show, one episode on Netflix that it's a documentary that Jonah Hill did. It's called Stutz, I believe. And
Yeah.
have you seen it?
No, I saw the preview for it, and I haven't seen it yet though.
I wouldn't rate it as spectacular personally. I mean, I liked it, but I think it's interesting. And the reason I bring it up is because that's what he went through, was like his physical manifestation of who he was, his weight, how he looked, and all that was in direct proportion with how he felt about himself inside and how hard he was being on himself and all those things. So it might be something that would be cool for you to watch. I think you might find some resonance with it, as you just described, your 18-year-old self.
Yeah.
I think it's really amazing that now is Heather doing the cleanse with you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because it's hard if you're not doing it with your partner. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And we both feel the same way. She's like, there's no way I'm doing that without you, and there's no way you're going to do that alone. So it's been great.
Yeah, let's stay in touch with how you're doing with that. Reach out to me at any time. Like if you're going through anything, you're just wanting to chat about the experience with someone who's been through it. Have you had that? You probably haven't had the time yet where you just pee a lot. Have you had that happen? Because that's an incredible experience. It's like
my team literally has been making fun of me all week long because I'd come in and start talking to them, and then I'd have to walk away, and they're like, "Really?"
Well, you've been sitting. Are you wearing a diaper? Wait, are you wearing a diaper right now? Because we've been sitting here for almost 2 hours. How have you endured through this conversation?
Yeah, I'm sitting on a newly found waterbed. That's all that is.
Well, I think that's my cue to wrap it up here in a minute. But that's one of the things that's really unbelievable is when your body starts to release all of its inflammation, it just lets go of everything. And that's where you like lean out and you feel just really great. You might need to actually go buy some new jeans and new slacks or get a tighter belt.
Yeah. Well, coming through the Christmas break, I was like, who snuck in here and shrunk all my clothes? So I think it's going to work out
it's going to get
just right.
right back to baseline, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Brother, thank you so much, man, for your vulnerability, your wisdom, your insight, and your beautiful heart. Thank you for bringing all of that to this conversation. I could fully feel you the whole time, as I could that last night on the beach in Costa Rica at the Signature Program retreat. That's when I really feel like I got to see who you really are as a human being. Thanks for being who you are, bro.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the coaching and friendship. And it's just, my life changed after I started that program.
Beautiful to hear, bro. Thanks for taking the time on your Saturday. Thank your mom for babysitting the kids so we can have this conversation together. And good luck to Heather. Tell her I said good luck on the cleanse. You guys can call me anytime.
Will do, brother. Thanks so much.
Okay, bro. Thank you.